Guys, look at this gorgeous barbecue brisket. This is what we're going to be giving you the recipe for today. How to make real Texas barbecue brisket. Look at that gorgeous red rind. That's a sign of the real thing. Well, howdy folks. I'm Stuart Trotter and this is Texas Cooking Today. Hey, what you're going to be making today is going to be some delicious food. And this is one of my recipe videos. Now, if you get to the end of this and you're wondering how to pull off this, that, or the other, I'll tell you what, there's another show on this very same recipe. It's one of my tutorials. So I'll tell you what, it'll be the next episode after this one. Take a look at that. Those are really full of information. Now guys, thank you for watching. Let's get right into making this. Oh, guys, that's good looking, right? That's Texas BBQ Brisket, and it's not something that can be made quickly. Barbecue brisket is a very, very slow cook. It takes a long time smoking. It takes a long time cooking. And when you're cooking up, 10 or 12 pounds of beef, that's a big slab of beef, and it takes a little while. So there's right ways and wrong ways of getting this done. Let me show you the right way to make real Texas barbecue. Let's get in there and get this made. Come on. Guys, we have a lot of goodies here. And of course, when it comes to Texas barbecue, this is our pride and joy right here. It's that big slab of beef, what we call a brisket. That's a wonderful cut. It's basically this part of the cow up here, or their pectoral muscle. When you look at their front legs, you'll see those two lobes hanging down from that. That's the point. That's this part right up here. It's that side facing down, and that's what you're seeing is that on either side, okay? We're going to be using mesquite wood. Nothing quite like the flavor of mesquite, and mesquite says Texas. It's got Texas written all over it. We have these trees all over the state. They're considered a nuisance. We dig them up and burn them up as quick as we can, and there's a lot of barbecue being made. Guys, we have a wonderful dry rub. We're going to be using some paprika, cayenne, cumin, onion powder, garlic powder, and some salt, all blended together to make a fantastic dry rub that we put on the meat and let it sit overnight, and then we get it out there on the smoke. So this is a multi-day process if you do it the right way. You got to give your dry rub time, and then you have to give the smoke time, and there is also additional cook time, and you'll see what I mean on that. Doing a brisket to get it just right, fork tender, really smoky, takes skill, it takes time, and it takes patience. Now guys, let's get busy trimming this thing up, mixing those spices together, and get it ready for smoking. Come on. Now guys, when it comes time to trim up a brisket, do not go cutting all of the fat off of it. It's valuable stuff. I wanted to explain to you though, you're going to find 3 places where the fat can be trimmed up. All right, there's going to be one place on top of the brisket, more so on certain types of beef than others. In other words, if you are cutting down, let's say a black Angus, you might see a large chunk of fat right here, which is actually this right here, but it's just much larger on the black Angus, all right? So certain cows have a little more fat deposits in certain places, and that's one of the characteristics of that. Now this isn't black Angus, so this deposit really doesn't need much trimming if I do any on it, okay? The other places you're going to find it, sometimes they're a little hard on the side here, and there's a reason for that. Let's flip this over. When you're looking at the back side on your fat cap, you're going to see some areas like this. This can just come off like that lip. It's not going to do you any good. Let's make sure we keep 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch of fat across this whole back side. Right here it's a little thinner than that in this spot, and right here I see a little bit of meat. That was probably from the packing house cutting a bit deep. That's not a problem. It'll be fine because there's so much fat here. But there is a thick deposit that usually runs right along this side, and that's part of what this is, and it's really hard, knobby fat. This is the second deposit you're going to basically be trimming up, is this big one here. So sometimes on top, always right here, and then there's the one that runs in between the 2 layers of meat, and you're seeing a little of that right there on that side, but we're going to see it best right here. This is a massive massive chunk of fat that runs deep up in between this muscle and this muscle. This muscle runs underneath there, but it has fat in between those two muscles. So what we're going to do is we're going to not get rid of all of it, but I'm going to slice out a big old chunk of that so that that smoke can get up under there and penetrate underneath the flat right here on this side, so we get better smoke penetration overall. Get your meat trimmed up in just that way. Guys, when it comes time to do your dry rub, just take all of those spices, combine them together in one bowl. I like to use a whisk to get them all mixed together well. And once they're mixed, they're ready to hit the meat. Guys, once you've got your meat all trimmed up and the fat taken down where it needs to be, take your dry rub and rub that stuff all over the meat in an even coat, okay? Get that on there and then just let it marinate for at least 12 hours. Now guys, we have smoke. It is time to get our meat out here. This baby's had all night marinating, and now it's time for this baby to go out here. Now if you'll notice what I'm doing, I'm putting that fat side up. I'm putting the larger end towards the fire early, okay, because there's a lot more meat to cook in that location than there is over here. It's going to be a little warmer on this side than it is here because that's where the smoke and the heat are coming up from. All right, so when you're doing this, start it that way, and then after a few hours you can flip it, and that way if you like those burnt ends and things like that, you're going to get that evenly across there. Now we're just going to close this up. Remember, keep your temperature between 220, 225, and you're going to be making perfect barbecue. Now guys, it's time for you to put together a mop for your barbecue. Now what a mop does is it helps to hold moisture into the parts of meat that don't have a good fat coating on them. All right, now what we do there is we want the smoke to penetrate the meat, but we don't want to put anything in the way. And something you need to know about doing one of these mops. A mop and barbecue sauce are not the same thing. Do not use a barbecue sauce for a mop. If you do, you will ruin your barbecue. The barbecue sauce contains a lot of sugar. The sugar is going to caramelize on the outside of the meat and it's going to block penetration of the smoke. Don't do that to your barbecue. A mop is designed, on the other hand, to add moisture and to protect. Now, the way it adds moisture is through a combination of some beef broth and some vinegar. The vinegar cuts any rind, breaks it and loosens it a little bit, makes it softer. The beef broth is something that can soak into the meat on that side. And here I have olive oil. We're going to boil these up together with some spices, some black pepper and salt. And that's 2 tablespoons of black pepper, a teaspoon of salt, maybe 2, and your proportions back here, 1 cup, 1/2 cup, and 2 cups. Simple enough to make a mop, and of course you need something to apply it. That's the reason they call it a mop. It looks like one. Boil that for about 7 to 8 minutes, and then it's ready to be applied to the meat as needed, usually about once every hour. Now guys, this exposed meat side, that's the important part of the mop right there. The fat side kind of takes care of itself, and you can add the mop for flavor, which I'll do, but it isn't necessary to keep in moisture. But this side, it is valuable. Now folks, there's something I wanted to talk to you about when it comes to wood, okay, this stuff right here. This is what I'm actually smoking with right here. This is, oh wow, that smells so good. This is mesquite, okay, you notice mesquite's a little darker. If you rub a piece of wood that's oak and it's raw, and I don't recommend rub it hard because, you know, you'll get splinters, but rub it gently and just a slight amount, you know, just a gentle rub like I'm doing here, okay. You can then feel your fingers, and your fingers are going to be just like they were before. They'll feel dry, or they're going to feel slightly oily. Now that's what this wood does. Okay, this is a fairly fresh split piece of mesquite, and when I rub it, I can feel that oil on my fingers. I can feel it in the wood, and the wood is heavier also than things like oak or other hardwoods that are used for smoking. Mesquite has a very, very high ratio of oil in the wood itself. Mesquite grows all over Texas. It's a very Texas wood, but it's oily. Now, how does that pertain to making barbecue? Well, guys, generally, if you're going to do long smoking, you know, and what I'm talking about is like more than 8 hours, when you start getting up into 12, 14, 16 hours of smoke cooking, then you're looking at a situation where you need a very dry wood. Oak is a good example. Oak doesn't have a lot of oil in it. It's a very dry wood to work with. That kind of wood is very good for long cooking. It doesn't have as much of those oils that produce, you know, some of the chemicals that affect the meat in different ways, as does something like mesquite. Now, if I take mesquite and try to cook for 12 hours with it, because of the intense amount of, well, let's say just the much more rich smoke that's produced from it, it could make my meat come out bitter, okay, or way too smoky in its flavor. And if that happens, then, you know, if you can't taste the meat past the smoke, it's just not good. So we're looking for a balance, and I find that 8 hours is pretty much my cutoff time if I'm smoking gently with mesquite, and that's what I did today. It was a long smoke with mesquite. Now we're going to pull that off of the fire, put it in a pan, put it in the oven with a little water in it, and give it several hours. And the thing of it is that just allows the cooking to finish. The smoking's already done. The making the barbecue part is finished. Now we just have to finish breaking down the collagen, you know, those connective tissues in the meat, and turn this into the delicious, delightful item it can be. It has to be falling apart. It has to be hard to cut, even with a sharp knife. Okay, guys, so here we have our brisket in off of the smoker. Now, what we got to do here is get this ready to go down into our oven. Now, this is important. Remember those tannins. So we got to keep this cooked in the right way. Now what I'm going to do is, I've got a little bit of my mop left over. I'm just going to pour it over the top, and once I get that on there, we're going to add some water to this. I'm going to go ahead, get it, put some foil on top of it, and then we're going to get it down in the oven. So that's all there is to it, guys. So if you've got any of your mop left over, hey, you know, let's not waste it. Let's just put it right there on that brisket. That way we get all of its benefits. And then, with that extra water, pour it right down in the pan. All you're going to need is about a cup to a cup and a half. After that, let's get foil on top of this. Now let's take that foil, let's tuck it on the edges real nice and clean and fold it under before we get this down in the oven, because we need the foil to help hold in steam. It's really a cool way of doing this. Now guys, you want your oven to be only 250 degrees, no more. Exactly 250, and that's it. Okay, let's get this right on down here in our oven. There we go. And it's all done, guys. There we go. Now guys, the quantities on our dry rub, here is your recipe. You're going to be using 3 tablespoons of that paprika, 1 tablespoon of the cayenne, 1 tablespoon of this cumin, beautiful brown earthy flavor. We're going to have 2 teaspoons of that onion powder and 2 teaspoons of the garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of salt, and folks, a little bit of thyme, because you're going to have time for that wonderful seasoning to marinate into the meat. And I recommend doing it overnight. So there is your recipe for your dry rub. Now guys, take a look at that. Our brisket is out of the oven. It's time to get it sliced. So remember, we're going to start at that point. We're going to slice up this way, separate the 2 cuts, then finish our slicing. But remember, that meat runs perpendicular to this. So if you are slicing this way, the lower cut has to be sliced this way. All right? Just remember that when you're doing it, and your brisket's going to look lovely. Guys, it's been an entire day of smoking and slow cooking and tending and making sure everything was right. And now I have this beautiful, subtle barbecue. Oh, get some of the right stuff here. There we go. Oh, it's as soft as a sponge. Delicate, tender, smoky. Just a hint of that spice in the background. It's there. You know it's there, but it's not intense or pungent. It's just good. Guys, this is a great recipe. And when you learn how to make real Texas barbecue like this, there's no turning back. You're going to be impressing your friends, and you're going to be making this over and over again. The first time you try it is going to be the beginning of many times. Guys, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching Texas Cooking Today, for watching this episode. If you would, do me a favor, actually a few favors. Just please subscribe. Click the like button. Leave some comments. You can leave hate mail down there if you want. I don't mind. Leave some comments. I really appreciate that. If you have a suggestion, if you have a request, type it down there. I'll get it. Don't worry. I read those things, believe it or not. Also, if you would, please check out my channel. Please share my videos. And also, do one last thing, guys. Please just have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Well, guys, once again, thank you very much for watching this show, for watching Texas Cooking Today. If you would, please go to my channel, check things out there. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. I've got stuff coming out every single Thursday, so watch closely. There's some really good stuff coming your way. And thank you again for watching Texas Cooking Today.